but so he's in good shape.
In great shape. Let that keep spinning. We should be good.
Once I quit spinning, then I can sign in.
No, not yet. He's getting there. Okay.
I need to jump.
Yeah, it's gone.
Where do you want to
Yeah, something a little bit when it's I think he's giving me the finger. He found the back. Oh, there we go. So it kind of gave me the finger there for a second.
Hallelujah, brothers and sisters, like Mark said. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters.
That'll keep going and then it'll say connected.
Behind door number 1. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters. For now.
My WebEx isn't working.
It's doing the same thing. So this running
Everybody wants to not talk about it.
Okay.
Can you check in meeting manager and make sure Jennifer is good? Or not Jen.
Jenna is
Jenna.
not, and Jess was.
Well, Jesse forgot his, but Jen's
Yep.
password says it's wrong.
It's password with.
Is there a 1 or just password? No 1.
What's wrong?
It's sitting at my house.
Doesn't have what?
It's sitting at my house.
That's from South Bend.
You could have probably done that.
Yeah. And everyone's connected and it's
All right, we'll call a monthly meeting of the Sheriff County Board of Supervisors to order. First is roll call. Okay, everyone is present. So we'll stand then for the silent prayer and pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we all sent an agenda. Is there any additions or corrections to that agenda? Not, I look for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Ms. McCormick. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wadle. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and you were also sent the minutes of the April 15th, 2025 regular meeting. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Not, I would look for a motion to approve them. Motion by Mr. Peterson, second by Mr. Johnson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and we did not have anyone register for public comments. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move into new business with reports and presentation The first being our county administrator's monthly report with our administrator Megan Catt.
Thank you. Apologies for the delay getting going tonight, coming from strategic planning meeting here, but just a couple of brief updates for you. As you're aware, Desiree Acantilado, our county clerk, was sworn in April. So you can see we're in the training process, and I'm working with her here and there on getting her up to speed on the county clerk role. We did hire our new payroll specialist. Rob started in April. He has gone through a couple of payrolls thus far, and so that transition has gone well for the county. As you know, the courthouse demolition project is underway, and we do have on the agenda tonight a resolution for the property transfer. We are going to ask that that gets postponed to next month, and that was a request from the Wise. They're working out some details on their end before that final approval will be ready. So we will look at that instead in June. On the financial end of things, we have started some preliminary 2026 budget work. CIP requests from departments have all been submitted, and we've started sorting through those and diving into those with the strategic planning committee. Had our second meeting this evening, and we'll have another one in a few weeks to continue looking at those requests. I also had an initial budget meeting with department heads to start, and some financial folks to start brainstorming some ideas for efficiencies and budgeting for 2026. We know we have a lot of work to do there, so we are getting started on doing some analysis and preparations for that. We'll start diving into analyzing mandated programs versus discretionary programs and that type of thing as well. Tomorrow we're meeting with Barry and Sarah to start looking at his 2026 budget request for IT, as that gets done as one of the first budgets because that's incorporated into all the other departmental budgets. So we're going to meet with him tomorrow to review that. A couple of recent events. We did have a successful County Government Day event here in April. We had our 3 area schools, so Wautoma, Tri-County, and Wild Rose, all came here on 2 different days. Generally, sophomores and juniors from the high school come learn about county government. We had Supervisor Wakely and Supervisor Jarvis join us for that. So very well received event, and it's a good relationship with the school to have that as well. And thank you to Heather Schwarzenska as our Register of Deeds, who kind of takes the lead on coordinating all of that with the schools and departments. This Friday, there will be a Sheriff's Department K-9 fundraiser at Bank First. So if you need lunch, check that out. We've been spending a lot of time finalizing some details for our wage study that's been going on. We have our consultant here tonight who will be presenting their recommendations for discussion. And then just a couple other training items we had. We did have our grant writing workshop last week. It was a very successful event. I think those that participated got a lot out of it. We were able to open it up to, I see Bill shaking, so shaking his head there. He was one of our attendees as well. We were able to open it up to our municipal partners. So we had actually 6 representatives from cities, towns, villages that were able to join as well. So that was great to have those folks included. And then in June 10th, we're going to have Daniel Foth from UW Extension. He is coming in to do a training for us on open meetings, agendas, minutes, some basic Roberts rules types of things. So we'll open that up to county staff as well as some municipal clerks if they want to join. If there are any county board members who would be interested in joining on that training, please reach out to myself or Desiree so that we can make sure we're in compliance with open meetings. That's all I have.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Megan. Does anybody have any questions for Megan? Okay, hearing none. We'll move then into the Department of Aging's annual report with the department head, Debbie Pavla. Hi, Debbie.
Happy to be here to present to you some activities during the past year. I also have Valerie Ladwig. She's our nutrition manager and registered dietitian, so that we're going to talk a little bit about the nutrition program this evening. So if you have questions specific to that, she can help with that as well. So 2024 was actually one of my more challenging years, and oh, thank you. You're gonna tell me how to use it? Or?
Just push the button when you're ready.
Push the button. Okay. All right. Pushing the button, Barry.
It will.
It's the theme of the
It
night.
will.
It will.
Okay.
Okay, try it now.
Okay. 2024 was actually one of my more challenging years, not because anything was super hard or challenging, it's just very time consuming. A number of you may mention that you see me here in the evenings, and 2024 was one of those years. First of all, we celebrated our 50th anniversary in March. Some of you stopped in for the event that we had at the courthouse. It was 50 years since the county board had made a resolution that they, formed a commission on aging. That was back in 1974. So we celebrated our 50 years just a couple of months before we moved over to the new government center. So I thought that was very fitting to do that. While we're in that process of celebrating 50 years and getting ready for the move, we also were informed about the regional ADRC and the idea to go single versus regional. And that required a lot of quick discussion and meetings and obviously writing an application. And all of that was happening during our 3-year aging services plan process, which we're required to do obviously every 3 years, which you have to get a lot of community involvement and input from. So it was, some challenging times, and then we'll talk about the nutrition sustainability. And of course, there's always technology transitions, which I think will be something that happens every single year. I don't think we'll ever get away from that. So click the button. Okay. There we go. Just a little bit of data review for this report. Annually, our department has contact with about 3,500 unique individuals between all the things that we work on. You can see the numbers there. Nutrition meals were 38,400 that year. Just shy of 6,000 rides, which is normal. And our aging disabilities Tri-County Resource Center just under 10,000, which is right in line with how it typically has been. 19 health and fall prevention workshops for 186 people. The meals, I just want to comment on, we did see a decline in our congregate meals in 2024, our group meals, if you will. And we also had a reduction in what we'll call our full cost meals, which are the meals that we are able to sell for full cost to our managed care organizations. If we had had the same number of meals for the managed care organizations, we would have been at about 42,000 meals, and that's what we budgeted for. And that is part of what we'll be talking about later when we get into nutrition sustainability. So just quick, there's some other programs here that we offer through the department. Not everything is listed, but just for those of you who may be newer and not as familiar with our programs, there's more things than we do. And I'm not gonna hurt you, I had to turn the page on this. Okay, so just really quick, again, the move was fun, exciting. I think my staff was, they were up, I don't even know if they slept the night before. They were so excited to get out of that basement down there in the courthouse. So I think half of them were moved in before like 8 a.m. Not sure how they did that, but it was a fun day. We did have a fall that first day, so that added to the excitement over here at the government center. On our first day, we didn't know where to find incident reports or anything at that point. Again, I mentioned our aging services plan. These are some of the main keys to the plan. I won't go through all of them. A lot of them focus on caregiving, nutrition, and then at-home safety and support services. And then I talked about the switch from the regional to single ADRC. It was a 40+ page application. We had to do a new staffing model, all new policies and processes, job descriptions, a new budget, new board, new bylaws, a lot of work to make that transition, but I think we've managed it successfully and are moving forward as a single county ADRC. Through this entire process, and I'll go back to the 50 years once we had celebrated that, our department has been known as a variety of things over the years. It started as the Commission on Aging, then it was Department of Aging, but I think that acronym DOA, Dead on Arrival, didn't really go so well with us. So somewhere along the line, they changed it to Department of Aging Services. And then we decided in starting in the beginning of 2024 to call it Aging and Disability Services, including that disability population, because we had always provided services for people with disabilities. Also, we had the Tri-County ADRC, you can see there. And now we are the Aging and Disability Resource Center of Tarrant County. So sometimes we wonder who we are. And we are trying to answer the phone and we get stuck in the middle of it, not knowing what to say. But we are officially with Tarrant County Department of Aging and Disability Services. We are doing business as the ADRC of Tarrant County, and our acronym officially is ADRC. Any questions about that? Before we get into nutrition sustainability. Take a little drink here. Okay, we spent a lot of the second half of the year working on our nutrition sustainability project. We had a work group that that my board appointed, and these are the members of the work group. Very, very active and an engaged group of people who had a lot to offer and a lot to say about the process. We had some discussions that were high-level discussions about how we were gonna meet the challenges ahead. So the challenges primarily being a shortage of revenue and underutilization at our senior dining centers. So first of all, why is sustainability important? Well, according to the Meals on Wheels comprehensive review, they did a comprehensive review study of 38 studies. I think they did it in 2022, and the summary was put together in 2023. Meals on Wheels and group dining were shown to improve diet quality, improvement or reduce the decline in nutritional status, reduced social isolation and loneliness, reduced falls, and increased home safety, reduced the use of costly healthcare services, nursing home use, and increased ability to age in place, reduce healthcare costs, and increased food security. That 2023 More Than a Meal study found that seniors who received daily delivered meals were significantly more likely to report that home delivered meals reduced their loneliness by 77% of the people, compared to those who received a one-time weekly delivery of frozen meals. I like this one a lot, so I put it in there. 64% of respondents in a survey of clients of Meals on Wheels in one study reported feeling close to their delivery drivers, of whom 92% specifically felt these interactions made them feel less lonely. And there are people sitting in this room who could probably testify to that. So the plan of the sustainability group was to, first and foremost, to maintain home delivery. There are at least 14 counties right now that have implemented waitlist for home delivered meals, and I struggle with that a lot. So that's our first priority, is how do we keep home delivered meals going without implementing a waitlist. And then to sustain and enhance utilization of traditional dining and social connection. And lots of interesting discussion about that, because it's easy to look at the numbers and it's easy to look at utilization and costs and all of that, make a decision. When you go out to the dining centers and you talk to them and you hear about how important they are to the people, the social connection that they receive as a benefit of the group dining program, you realize that there is a value to them and that they are really important. And then you go back to some of the research, eating together and socialization and, decreasing nutrition risk and all that. So we really debated a lot as we went through the process as to what does that really mean? What does traditional dining mean? What does it need to look like? And what was the original intent of the program? What is the intent of the program now? And are we meeting the intent of the program? Are we actually making a difference? I mean, it's a very expensive program, so are we making a difference with it? And so as a result of that, the idea was that we really wanted to figure out a way to do 5-day-a-week dining, at least in the north, south, east, and west portions of the county. And we'll talk about it in just a few minutes. A plan that we came up with for that. But at the same time, there's new diners that are never gonna come to what we call a traditional dining center. They are maybe younger, of retirees who maybe eating at noon doesn't appeal to them, or just the ideas or the activities that take place at the traditional dining. So we're looking at what we were just referencing, power up, like what do the new diners want, and how can we provide them a healthy meal option and social interaction? We think more the traditional dining, it's more about social connection, that family feeling. We typically have older people, like say 80, 85, 90, 100 plus come to the dining centers, not all, but maybe the majority. And so for the younger retiree, it's more about social interaction, not necessarily that connection, that family feeling of connection. And then focusing on nutrition education and counseling, with Valerie being a registered dietitian, she's able to do a lot of those programs for us, including counseling. And it's something that if people in our community say, I'm never going to go to a dining center, I'm never going to participate in any of those programs or activities, maybe they would at least come to a nutrition education program and on their own learn about healthy eating habits and things that can help them have a more successful aging process. So diving into the heart of the issue here, again, underutilization was one of it, but we had a shortfall in revenue. We have a shortfall in revenue, and I can explain that. As many of you know, we had that ARPA funding during the pandemic. We actually, through the Older Americans Act, received our own amount of ARPA funding for Older Americans Act programs. We received for nutrition just shy of $87,000 over 3 years for the nutrition program. So that's an average of about $29,000 per year. Well, that ended last year. And so there we go, right there, 29,000 that we're missing. Something that happened in the spring of 2024 was that our managed care organization, at least one of them, one of our primary ones, all of a sudden they stopped authorizing meals through our program, and we weren't sure why. We started noticing it in about April, or maybe March, but at least April. And well, then we found out that they had, because they had been purchased by a nationwide insurance company, they were able to, as a large company, negotiate a really good price with a mail delivery meal program, so that they could deliver, have mailed to the people that were eligible, a box of meals for the week, and then that's it. Then they're good to go. That happened suddenly and quickly without notice, and we had budgeted. We had budgeted like 82,000, and essentially we only received half of that. We just kept watching those meals go down and down. Those are the meals we were able to charge the full costs for. So that's, that was a big impact to our budget. So that was about 40,000 lost. And then, of course, you all recognize how high the food costs went the last few years. And so at one point we had increased by $20,000 just for food costs alone. And then underutilization obviously is going to mean that you're getting less revenue from the participants themselves, and all of it put together was about an $80,000 to $90,000 deficit. So what the sustainability work group has been doing over the past 9 months to a year is working on a variety of things. Right after the pandemic, as we opened the sites and people started to come back into the program, we kind of waited for a while to watch how it was settling. And then we went and talked with each dining center, said, how many days do you really want to be open? And they told us, and in that we were able to reduce, we reduced the sites by 7 days per week. And so that was about a $50,000 savings at the time. We also, during the pandemic, had gone from 5-day-a-week delivery to 3 days per week. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that we would stay at 3-day-per-week delivery. But during the multiple years of the pandemic, we never once had a complaint from anybody. So on Mondays, we deliver 2 hot meals. So for Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesdays, we deliver 2 hot meals for Wednesday and Thursday, and then on Friday, we deliver 1 hot meal, and then anybody getting frozens for the weekend, we deliver those meals. So that was about when we decided to make that permanent, so it took a couple of years before we decided, that was about an $18,000 savings. We've reviewed, Valerie's been working on group purchasing plan options, cycle menus. Right now, she's working with some of her group committee members on route optimization and looking at reducing. Right now we have 6 routes, so we added a route during the pandemic because in about a 15-day period of time, we added over 100 people to the program. So now we have settled, we watched the numbers, and we are back to pre-pandemic number of people that we're serving. So we think that we can go with 5 routes rather than 6. That'll be between a $6,000 and $8,000 savings. And then the regional approach that we'll talk to you about in just a minute here would be about another $20,000 savings. So that plus some revenue enhancements, we increased our contribution rate for both programs. And some of you may have seen we're doing an annual fundraising campaign for supporting the program as well. We'll start looking into some grant options. And we'll have some other ideas that we are going to look into as well. So we've managed to get to around $60,000 of our $80,000 to $90,000 problem. So we're making good strides. We're moving in the right direction. And so now we have a repackaged dining experience that we're going to roll out during the month of June. And it's on a trial basis. But really what it does is it regionalizes the dining center. So right now, during the trial period, every dining center that we currently have gets to continue to remain open, but not necessarily for the same number of days as what it was opened in the past or currently. So, but what we've done is we've looked at the transportation schedule that we currently have. And by committing to transportation to these dining centers in a regional area, we are able, our goal is to get to 5-day per week access. And for most sites right now, just with the current transportation schedule, we're able to get to 5-day per week access. So nobody really loses. And we're going to talk about it at the transportation committee, whether we can maybe do a little expansion during the pilot period to see if we can fill in some of the gaps that we have and then be able to provide that 5-day a week access. So I'm going to have Valerie pass out so you can see a little bit better than looking at a screen. You can see it a little bit closer.
Debbie, you said that the cost that you were asking people for a meal is $6. What is the cost to the county for a meal, you know?
So our group dining or congregate dining contribution, suggested contribution rate is $4.50 to $6. The actual cost for the dining in was close to, don't faint or anything, close to like $20 a meal, and that's the problem. That meal should be like 15 or under, and that's what we're trying to get at. So if we do some of this consolidation, we think we can get that price down because we'll be having less expense. We'll be saving that $20,000+, and hopefully having higher participation. So our cost per meal should come down. On the other side, our home delivered meals right now are costing us about $12. Depends on how you look at it, the way the state makes us report, but anywhere between $12 and $12.69 a meal, which is under the state average, so that's good. And you know, if we could keep it at that rate, not $12 rate, you know, or under would be nice, but I think we're doing pretty well there. Yeah, so what Valerie handed out is the regional dining center pilot. Mary, did you get one? Would you like one? Do you have a short one? Okay, here you go, Mary, you can get this. You get the big one.
I get the big, I'll hang it up. Thank you.
Basically, it takes, on the west side dining, well, let me start with the north, because when we sat down and tried to decide, you know, how do we go about this? We have to do something, and where do we start? So I'm gonna take Wild Rose and Saxville Dining Centers as an example. Both of them are doing very well right now. We like to see an average of 12 or more. 12 to 15 is ideal, and more than that is great. And they're both doing that right now. And all of our dining centers ebb and flow depending on the season and whatnot. So how do you say one has to close and the other one gets to stay open? So by doing this regional approach, we can say both of them get to stay open. Saxville has never wanted more than 2 days per week, and Wild Rose is currently at 4 days. So they would go down to 3 days. And we had set it up where Saxville is currently on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we just left that. And then put Wild Roses Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and that way transportation could be provided. And have that access either 4 to 5 days a week for everybody, except Saxville, who says we don't want more than 2, but maybe someday that will change. But then there were some reasons related to transportation, why it would make more sense to potentially switch Saxville to Tuesday, Thursday, and have Wild Rose go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And by doing that, we would be able to solve our issue we had with the reduction of our routes from 6 to 5, because we just couldn't get that route, the combining of the routes under. We have to try to keep it to around 4 hours, and we were at about 5 hours when we tried to put them together. So, and it was because of needing to get to the Saxville Dining Center with the food by a certain time. So we had to go all the way out of our way and then back and whatnot. So anyway, long story short, it's gonna, by making that flip, it's gonna help us have an additional savings. And I wanna add that we've had people calling us, and we had a dining center forum meeting in, I think, the end of March. And people have been so great, like they didn't like the news, they didn't like hearing it. Nobody wants to hear that something's gonna be less than what they wanted. But they have been so great in that. Just the other day, I had a lady call me and she said, you know, I'm making dessert, and if we made our own desserts every once in a while, that would help save some money, you know, yes, that's a really good idea. There are some rules around that, but we can do it. So I'm not gonna go through every one of these. You kind of get the picture of where we're going. I certainly would take any questions related to it. I know it's a big deal out in the community. These dining centers have been there forever. I think that, yeah, I was gonna say something, but I don't remember what it was. So. Right now, are there any questions related to the proposed pilot that we're gonna try between now and the end of September? I will say that we are requesting that each location that is open on any given day, that they have at least 8 participants. And if they don't, then it would be an automatic close, with the concept of us making a full-fledged effort to get anybody who had signed up to a different location, so that they don't suffer as a result of it. Because we have to, this is about sustainability, and so we have to find a way to say, you know, after the pilot is over, are you going to be able to remain open and have enough people and make it worthwhile? So minimum of 8, our goal is 12 to 15 plus every day. By combining the sites that have less participants, say in that 6 to 10 range on a daily average, you put the 2 of those together, you have a successful dining center. So any questions or comments on that? Okay. At our grant writing training that I went to, there was a quote in our little manual. It said, create a compelling vision, one that takes people to a new place, and then translate that vision into reality. And that really hit home, because I think that's what we're trying to do. We don't know if this will work or not, very well could fail. But we know that we're not heading in the right direction right now with our group dining, our senior dining. So we know that we need to do something. So we have a vision. We're going to do everything we can to support this process and try to make it successful. But in the end, if the communities just say to us that they just don't want this type of dining experience, then we will move on. And we will do something different. One of the things I didn't mention, you might have seen on here, go back to that slide, that PSC 60 dining. Any guesses on what that might be? No? So PSC, Point City Center, 60 or older. Just a name that came out of the air that we are using to kind of make people curious about what it is and maybe create some excitement around it. And because we have our own building out at Parsippany, we are able to do more things than we can at some of the other locations. So, for example, we might do some on-site cooking, not the full meal, but I know we're planning a barbecue for the first day of summer, where we'll have a grill out there and do fresh grilling. One of the things from the dining forum was that people said, you know, I don't want to have to be there at a certain time to eat. I don't want to have to be there right at 12 o'clock to eat. So I'd like to be able to get there when I get there. So PSC dining would allow for that, having open hours of like 11 to 1. Maybe making our cookies right there on site, our dessert, our fresh cookies, and having some music once in a while, things like that. So we'll do some PSC 60 dining opportunities, as well as what we'll call PSC 60 pop-up events, which are maybe that include more programs with it, like the music and things like that. I'm hoping to maybe work with Mary and the Wautoma Center, Senior Center as well, to maybe do some WC 60 dining options. So that's what that is. Jump along here. Just really quick on where we stand right now with funding. In general, as you all know, there's a lot going on at the federal level. The agency that oversees our programs, I'm gonna forget the name, Administration of Community Living, ACL, has been disbanded, and 2 of the titles B and C, have been placed with Child and Family Services or something along that line. And I think I got that wrong. I don't remember which one I went, but the other titles went with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And then Title D, which is our health promotion program. It still exists, but they are proposing 0 funding for the health programs. I don't know whether that will be what ends up happening in the end, but that's what's being proposed right now. Funding for ADRCs nationwide, the proposal is that is zeroed out as well. Here in Wisconsin, our ADRC is funded with state dollars, so we won't be impacted by that, but I thought I would share in case you heard about it on the news at all. And transportation is primarily state funded as well, so we should be okay there. We do have vehicles that we purchased, which is why I put that picture there. That's a picture of our newest bus or van. And we do get some funding from the federal government to help purchase those vehicles. There's up to about $20,000 right now, smaller grants that I know of that have been proposed to be zeroed out as well. But again, we'll see what the final package turns out to be. So that is where we stand right now. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Debbie?
I do. Yes. Yeah, could you touch a little bit on some of the hidden costs that are associated with providing meals to the people that you take care of? Some of the things are out of your control that really impact that bottom line, like for instance, fuel costs and things like that no one takes into account. I mean, you see $6 like I can make a few hamburgers for that. What's the big deal? But there's more stuff that goes into it. If you could, enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, well, the two biggest ones are what you said, food cost and food and fuel costs. So there's no control over that. Obviously, what impacts us as a county is health insurance. Somebody's on, then they're off, then they're on again, and that makes the budget swing in a big hurry. Sometimes for us staffing, getting enough people able to do the driving or be out at the sites and needing to have subs and cover that way. But realistically, I'm going down the list and really it's the food and it's the fuel. That's the biggest ones out of our control. And then of course, like the vehicles, keeping up with what might happen to a vehicle over time. We have towed a few vehicles from here to there, so yeah. It's an expensive program, but if you look at like our home delivered meal being right around $12, can you go anywhere and get a meal that is, roast beef, mashed potatoes, vegetables, a dessert, and all the other things that she puts in with it? Delivered to your home for $12, I don't know that anybody can. So I think we're doing pretty well there. It's really just the dining centers where we're not in alignment right now. So, did I cover the things you were thinking?
Yeah, I mean, because there was just such an array of things that go into that, like even just maintaining the buildings, plowing.
Yeah, that's out at Parsippany. Now we do have to pick up the utilities and the plowing. But at the other sites, we contribute a cost, so sorry, like out at Saxville, and they have to pay for the plow, but we just contribute towards that.
A lot of people don't realize all the little hidden costs that just they layer upon each other and bring the total up. So
yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Obvious, Debbie, you put a lot of thoughtfulness and strategy into this, so we appreciate that and all you're doing for the such a vulnerable and big part of our community. So thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, and we'll move on to the discussion of possible motion action items. First being the wage study recommendations. Recommendations will be presented by John Muller for Risk Strategies.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Muller with Risk Strategies. We are the outside consultant that the county has obtained to conduct this wage study. Our team, we provide HR consulting services across the country to a variety of organizations, largely public sector. In fact, our team is comprised of former public sector HR practitioners and leaders. So we're pretty well familiar with conducting compensation work and looking at the various positions that different public entities have. So we've had the opportunity to work with Waushara County, a couple other agencies in Wisconsin. So we're here to present the findings that we have, but I want to talk through the methodology, what we really did to arrive at what we're recommending for you all. So high level overview, we are going to talk about what we did, what the approach was, how we engaged all of you. So, we're an outside consultant. That's why you brought us in to do this independently and objectively, but we're also smart enough to know what we don't know. So this is a very collaborative process, and we'll talk about what the employees, more specifically leadership within the county, did to help with the study, present our recommendations, and we'll talk through what we're asking you all to approve, which is the new pay plan for the county and what that impact is going to have financially, because part of what we do is not only do we recommend a new pay plan, but then we walk through what that's going to do to the people that are already employed here and how that impacts their pay. So initially, when we kicked off the project last year, we did hold discovery meetings with the team here. And when I say the team here, our team at Risk Strategies has worked with the county administrator, Megan, when she came on, finance, HR. However, I know that the team at Waushara County has involved all the department heads as well to gain their buy-in and get their contributions as well. So when I say the team at the county, this was very much a collaborative thing, to find out what you're hoping to achieve with this, right? What are some of the milestones? What do you want to get out of this? What do you think might be some of the hurdles we have to overcome? And inevitably, one of them is always the budget, which we will talk about here shortly. We did an overall assessment of what the county's current pay plan is, and we don't just mean the pay ranges, right? We looked at anything additional you're doing, if there's special pays, if there are, different leaves, benefits. We wanted to make sure we got a good understanding of what you're providing your employees so that we could compare that against the market. So we reviewed each pay grade, pay ranges, job classifications in each of those descriptions. And then we go out and compare that with 12 other entities here in the Wisconsin area. And I do have them. I remembered to bring that list with me this time because I know somebody will ask. Just bear with me 1 second. I went off my phone. All right, so the other entities that we compared Waushara against is Clark County, Columbia County, Green Lake County, Juneau County, Marquette County, Monroe County, Portage County, South County, Waupaca, Adams County, and Wood County. So again, you'll notice we got a wide variety of counties that you run up against, that your borders touch up against. Some of them might be a little bit different from a budgetary standpoint. Some may be higher, some may be lower. The reason we do that, you need a good spread and a comparison. And I'll talk about how we land on a number in that. But you want to make sure that we're looking at a lot of different avenues because ultimately you're competing for talent with some of these other areas. The one county that we left out, because I know someone may ask, is Dane County, because we've come to learn in this market, Dane County is operating at a slightly different budgetary level than most of the other counties in the area. So we benchmarked each of your jobs. Our team reviewed each of these job descriptions. We asked questions if something didn't make sense to clarify. And then we found the closest match at each of these other counties. And then that's how we benchmark the jobs and looking at their pay and develop basically a percentile model that we come up with. So again, we reviewed the benefits information. And throughout this project, when I say this was collaborative, it really was. We met weekly or bi-weekly with the county team, even if it was just a handful of people to check in. And I'd say recently we've been meeting definitely weekly to try to finalize a lot of this. So in total, we benchmarked over about 102 positions here at the county. And I say that because sometimes there are positions that we don't find many matches for. You might have a relatively unique role, or maybe it's something we only found 1 or 2 matches. So we still use that data, but then we do rely on your current hierarchy or structure to figure out where to fit that position in. We did develop a new pay plan with ranges. Each of the positions falls in the range, new steps, and we adjusted job descriptions. For example, there were some job descriptions that were, I don't want to say unstandard, but maybe they were doing the same thing in different departments and they had various different titles. So if we could band those together into one description and the only difference is the department they're sitting in, we did do that. Then we review, after we come up with this draft, we do what's called a compression analysis. So I want to take a step back. When we are benchmarking these positions, we are solely looking at the job itself. So for example, if you have a cook and that cook does 5 other things, maybe the cook drives the van sometimes for your center, we're looking at what their main function is. So if that cook were to leave, what are you replacing that cook with? You're replacing that cook with another cook with that same set of skills, not necessarily a van or a bus driver. So we're really looking at what the job entails. But then when we get to this part where we do a compression analysis, that's where we start to look at your employees. We don't look at them by name, who they are, by their individual qualifications. We're simply looking at the job they're in now, how long they've been in that job here with the county, and what their current pay is. And the reason we're doing that is this compression analysis. We are trying to adjust for the market. So somebody that's been in a job, let's say 10 years here at the county, the same job, they should be far enough into that salary range that they should at least be at the middle of it. That's kind of like the best practice. So if they're not, they need to be adjusted. At least that's typically what we do. And the reason we do that analysis is you have someone that's worked here for 10 years in the same role. If you go and hire someone today from outside, you're likely going to bring somebody in, maybe not at where you're paying that person, but pretty close to them, because maybe they have a lot of experience and it's a tough job market right now. And the only way you're going to get somebody is to pay them more. So that creates compression. So we do this one-time adjustment or recommendation to try to fix that. So as we started working through all this and came up with the analysis, you know, we had multiple meetings again with the team here to figure out where should we target to build these new pay bands. We ultimately settled on the 50th percentile of the results we found. So if we did each job and we compared them against, you know, 5, 6 other jobs, in most cases 10 to 12 jobs, we get a data set from minimum salaries to high salaries. And we look at the 50th percentile, which is that dead middle salary, 65th, 75th, and we try to figure out where to build your pay plans off of. That 50th percentile is not an average. So if there are 12 other salary ranges, that is the dead middle of that. It's not an average. So if you have an outlier that's paying a lot more, that doesn't really influence that number. So we ultimately settle on the 50th percentile here for Waushara County for a number of reasons. One, if we look at your current pay plan today and put it up against the benchmarking results we found with the comparable agencies, there's room for growth. You're a little bit below the 50th percentile today. The other thing we looked at was we were looking at this from a budget standpoint. What could the county realistically afford if they were to move to implement this? So we ultimately settled on the 50th percentile, as I said, and we built the new pay ranges based on that data. So we look at all these jobs, we take your current pay plan, and we try to construct new pay ranges, and then we start plugging in each of the jobs based on their market results or where they fall in the market into those new pay ranges. Sometimes you'll have some that are, maybe they could go in an F, or maybe they could really go in a G because their benchmarking results are so close. That's where we rely on you all here and getting that information back from the department heads. Well, does this job really do more than that? Not the person, the job. Or sometimes this happens actually quite often. From the market data that we pull, we'll find a lead and then somebody who is maybe their junior, and they benchmark really close together, and they would end up normally in the same pay range. So if our team doesn't adjust for that, we rely again on you all to call that out. So we make sure that we're adjusting for internal equity. So we've probably gone back and forth on the new pay ranges multiple times. And even with our recommendations, I know you all have adjusted that a few times here at the county to make that fit what works well for you all. So once we did all this, we did start looking at the compression analysis. And when we did the compression the way we normally do, which is first we take all your employees, and if they need to come up to the new minimum of the new pay range, they go there first. Then we do that compression analysis to see if they need to move further within that salary range. When we did that, we knew right away that that was probably going to be a budget impact that you all couldn't absorb. And working again with many public agencies, we know you all are stewards of the public money, right? So we're very conscious about that. So we set out to come up with some other costing alternatives. And so some of these other approaches were, we can implement with full compression the way we would typically recommend. And we knew we weren't going to get it done in time for budgeting with a 1/1/2025 date for your fiscal year. So we've been looking at starting to implement in July with the first paycheck on July 13th. We looked at doing a tiered approach. So could we break up your employee population? Could we take the third lowest paid and implement with them first, then do the next third and the next third, and do this over the course of like a year and a half? So we looked at that. Do we do nothing with compression? Do we just make sure everybody's at least at the minimum of the new salary range? And then ultimately we came up with a modified compression approach, which I'll talk through, and it's ultimately what we're recommending to you all tonight. So if we implement the full study, again, that's what we're looking at here. You would have had, and this is consistent throughout, you have 49 employees roughly that are below their new minimum salary for their position. So they need to come up. That's a cost to the county of just about $70,000. And that is for an entire year. So if we implemented this on January 1, that would have been 70,000. So implementing on July 13th, it's not going to be that full amount. Under this analysis, there were about 131 employees that would still receive some form of compression in addition to being brought to the new minimum. And when I mention some of these numbers, I'm saying thereabouts, because some of this is still a bit of a moving target because you have people that are being promoted. You have people that are changing jobs. You have people that are leaving or coming on board. We don't ask you all to stop doing business and stop hiring people while we're conducting the study. So that 131, if we did compression the way we typically do it, which is, you know, basically that midpoint of the salary range, somebody at 10 years should at least be there. That's a cost of $424,000 over a year. So the total financial impact for 1 year to the county, you can see up there, roughly $566,000, and you would have had, you know, more than half of your, or about half, more than half of your employees impacted, meaning they would have gotten some form of increase. We looked at this tiered approach. So again, I mentioned starting with the lowest pay ranges, do that first third, then another third and another third. And we looked at doing July 13th of this year, January 1st, 2026, then July 13th or thereabouts, whenever that paycheck is next year. So this approach, it doesn't really save you money. You're spreading the cost out, right? I say you're kicking the can down the road. Eventually that money is going to get paid, get absorbed somehow. But what we looked at when we ran these numbers, your first year of implementation was still going to be more costly. And we were going to have to figure out, and we can do it, but it becomes a little bit more problematic. We have to keep aging that data and adjusting people each more. So that second third, that number that we would have said it was, that we'd say it is today, that's not what it is in 6 months, because you've got to age that data. You've got to adjust for any pay increases that happen to those individuals between now and then. But more importantly, we conducted the majority of this wage study last fiscal year, which is fine. But if you keep moving that out, the data you're now using becomes stale. And then by the time we implement everything, even though we keep adjusting, you all are going to be behind the market again. And I was just joking with Deb about this. You know, I hate to say this because it's something my company does, but you all basically keep driving each other's salaries up, because one agency does a salary study, and then the 10, 12 agencies that are asked to provide their data, somebody else that goes and does a study for them. So you're constantly chasing after each other to get ahead of them. So think about doing that now, and now we're pushing everything out another year, year and a half. That's why I say it's going to be more costly. So we really do not recommend using this approach. In fact, I don't think we've actually ever really implemented it this way for any of our other clients that we work with, because of the reasons I just mentioned. We could do no compression. So you have that 49 employees that I mentioned that are below the minimums. They're going to get their increases. The cost is roughly 70,000 in salary. The total financial impact is almost 80,000, because we figure in, you know, some of the payroll costs that the county pays on behalf of employees, like FICA, the pension, any types of payroll taxes, that type of thing. So by doing this, again, a much more palatable figure, but you're only impacting about 49 employees in total here. Your compression issue is going to get worse over time, because you're going to have a lot of people stuck really at the bottom of that pay range. So you're going to hire new people. They're going to come in at or above where those employees are now. You're not adjusting for someone that's been in that role for a long time. And then that causes morale issues. I know when I first started working with you all, mentioned communicating this to your employees. No matter how many times we do this, every single one of your employees that heard you were doing a wage study thinks they're getting a $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 pay increase. No matter where we do this, that's always what they think. So now you all would have to turn around and tell everybody, well, you know, we did the wage study, but ultimately only about, you know, a quarter of our workforce is going to get anything out of it. That's not a good morale look either. It's kind of like you paid to do the study, but didn't do anything with it. So again, we really don't recommend doing this for those reasons. So what we came up with is a modified approach. And really the easiest way to break this down is we looked at anybody that should have received compression when we did the analysis on the first option I mentioned. But instead of giving them that full amount, we really just, for the most part, brought them up to the next step on the new pay plan. So they're still getting an increase. They're not getting as much of an increase as they would have. So you still got those same 49 people below the minimum at just under 70,000. Now you have about 76, give or take. And again, I'm being a little bit, the numbers are moving a little bit depending on some attrition you all have and moving into new positions. So 76 getting compression for another 65,000 plus. So your total financial impact over 1 year, if we implement this now, this option is roughly right around 154,000, a little bit less, a little bit more. And you have about 100 employees. So now somewhere between a third and half of your employee population is getting some sort of raise. So from our perspective, all the different options we looked at, this gives you the most, for lack of a better term, bang for your buck. We understand the county's budget. We don't want to ask you or expect you to do something that doesn't make fiscal sense. But at the same time, as people that have done this for a while, both for our own employers and as a consultant, we don't want to do this study and not make a recommendation that you don't walk away with and get some value out of. And more importantly, your employees feel like they've gotten some value out of. So we feel like this is, the best way to go, given the circumstances, to be fiscally responsible and still make sure that there's an impact to the employees, that helps morale, it helps retention, it helps recruiting efforts down the road. Because let's not forget, we still did build an all new pay plan for you all to adopt, and that will help you with being more competitive with bringing new people in, and of course, being able to retain people, because we're talking about implementing this now. This does not take into consideration anything you do within the next budget cycle to the pay plan once it turns over again for the next fiscal year. So again, just to wrap up, when we look at this, again, we're looking at the position, the role. If somebody left that job today, who or what skills are you hiring to refill that job? Not the individuals that are in the jobs now. So, that gets taken out of the equation. It's the most objective way to do this. Okay. Any questions?
Very good. Thank you, John. Yeah, is there any questions for John or Deb or Megan? I guess they're all kind of, we're together to figure this out and how we can implement it. If not, I would look for a motion to accept the wage study recommendations, that modified compression for our recommendation. Okay, motion by Ms. McCormick. Is there a second? Is there a second to the motion? We can bring a motion forward and vote it down as well. So, but I do want it to be a positive motion, and then.
Yeah, I'll give it a second.
Okay, second by Mr. Urban. All right, is there any discussion on the motion?
Our budget.
So we all know our budgets are very challenging right now, right? You saw the approach that he presented. If we were to do the full recommendation, is almost $600,000. We cannot afford that. I would love to come here and say that everybody should go exactly where they need to be on the pay plan. I do not believe that we can afford that. I believe the option that we have presented is the most fiscally responsible, and I do think that we can afford it. I know that implementing it mid-year, we have vacancies and retirements that is going to cover that portion for this year. I'm looking ahead, it's going to be challenging. I think that it is going to be more costly if you choose to do nothing. Potentially, we have some vacancies that we are continuing to struggle to fill. And I do think that increasing some of those starting wages will help with some of those vacancies. I also think from a morale standpoint, I think it's really challenging to go into this, as you know, John alluded, spending the money to go through the study and to not move forward with it. I do know that looking ahead to 2026, we are starting out behind to start with because of what we pulled from the general fund for our 2025 budget. So yes, it's going to be difficult. That's why we're already starting to look at where we can gain some efficiencies. You heard Debbie talk tonight on how diligent she's been in trying to find some efficiencies in her department. We're starting to do similar things with our budget group so that we can start looking at those across the board with other departments as well.
Okay, is that answer? Is there any other questions? Yes.
Have you looked at just on an individual basis, trying to increase the pay for those positions that you're having a difficult time attracting applicants for?
If you guys would like to go that route, we certainly can. Right now, the recommendation was the entire wage study, but that is an option to go through. I think you're still going to have a similar fiscal impact because again, we're doing the modified compression approach. So bringing those ones up, you know, like he's got on the screen there, the minimum ones alone is going to be $70,000. If that's something you want to look towards, we can certainly look at that.
A consideration with that too then would be the morale of the
Correct.
of the workers that are
There's other impact.
from it as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just got a comment. I mean, it was exciting to hear Deb talk to, am I working or not? It was exciting to hear Deb talk about cost savings in her department. And I know you're working extremely hard with all the departments on that, Megan. But you know, we're talking a hit to $150,000 to the budget, you know, so I really want to see, I really know you're going to find some of that low hanging fruit to pay for this. So that's what I'll be excited to hear from other departments as to what they're doing is pulling low hanging fruit down and trying to pay for some of this.
I think also to know the impact to the county levy is not fully 155. And yes, that's give or take. It's a bit of a moving target, but there are some wages that are reimbursed through grants, through revenues. And so those are things to consider as well, that the levy impact is not fully 155.
Okay, any other questions?
I just want to make a comment that, you know, this was obviously an extensive study. Thank you for explaining it in such detail. And the biggest thing I wanted to hear was Megan's take on how she feels about this modified approach. I think it's really important that we're considering current employees and what they're making when we're looking at what it's going to take to bring in new hires for these open positions. So I think it's a good compromise, knowing the limitations of our budget. I just appreciate the work that you all put into analyzing this and presenting it.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, no more? All right, we'll go ahead and vote on that then. It's not working, Pat?
It's not letting me share over here either, so there we go. Just 1 second. Okay, so Supervisor King
Yes.
and Supervisor Urban.
Yes.
Okay, and the motion passes. Very good. Thank you all. Okay, next move into the opioid settlement matching grant request. A request to provide matching funds to meet the application requirements to obtain a grant of up to $100,000 in state opioid monies.
So this needs a little bit of explanation. So there is a grant opportunity whereby you can leverage some of your opioid settlement money to get more money. So whatever amount of money you ask for in the grant, the county also has to pay that much money, right? So you can, up to $100,000 is the amount you can apply for. We do not have $100,000, okay? Right now, the balance today of unallocated grant funds, or opioid settlement funds is $90,381.24. So I did reach out to the Department of Human Services because I think that it would be appropriate to apply for this because you can get more money for what you already have, right? So what some of the thoughts are that from the department is considering, and the grant application is due by June 30th, is there are some, so you can do culturally based programs that aim to provide healing for people who use drugs and or prevent future drug use. And you can so there's we already contract with Shines right now for some stuff, but we can do, they're looking at $12,000 per peer support specialist for 4 to 5 hours a week. That would increase access. So that's the first one. Increasing access for medications that help fight drug abuse and opioid use. I will tell you that, for instance, we had an individual in our jail that we paid for a shot because it was cheaper for us to pay for the shot to keep him level than all the trips to the hospital while he was in our jail. And those shots are not cheap, but what they're looking for is like money that would help pay for transportation to get people to their clinic appointments. Also, they're looking at harm reduction, treatment and prevention. So like sending people to inpatient residential treatment, which we've funded some of that with our current opioid money. And so they're estimating $30,000 for 1 year services to support 10 individuals. That is assuming $125 a week for a 180-day stay or $3,000 per stay. So the request that Human Services is asking that we approve is that they be allowed to apply for a grant for $45,000, that we would take $45,000 of our current opioid settlement money, allocated to that. And so then they would have $90,000 to fund these different programs to meet the needs of the county. So we would basically get an additional $45,000 brought into the county to help fight some of these things. I think that that's a good idea. We will be getting some more payments. There was, like a lot of our settlements are structured so that you get payments per year. I just can't tell you how much is going to come in each year. In the first year, we had a couple of them that paid more than 1 year at a time. So then it kind of staggered it out. Just this week, there was more documents in my email about the Kroger settlement. So we know we approved that. So that money should start to come in. There's another bankruptcy one that payments should start to come in. So I'm not concerned about dropping our balance by half. I think that if the department had asked for a little bit more, I could even be in support of that. I would not recommend that you deplete the whole 90,000, even though that would bring $180,000 in, but then your $180,000 is now tied up with all of this and you don't have any money for anything else, right? So over the past year, you've approved multiple different trainings. You have approved equipment for the sheriff's department to assist with this type of, with these programs. You've approved money to go towards helping foster parents who are dealing with drug children. And if you depleted all of your money, you wouldn't be able to approve any of those things. And I would say it's probably at least once a month, if not more, that John and Megan and I get a request for someone who would like a month worth of sober living. So like they've just come out of residential, they're just getting a job. Now they're staying at a sober living facility. They're asking for rental assistance for that. And that's about $750 a month, but it gives them time to get their job, get on their feet, and then start paying for that. But if you depleted all of it, you wouldn't be able to do all these other things. So I would never recommend the whole 90,000. But Human Services is requesting that we approve $45,000 from our settlement for their grant as matching dollars.
Right, so you realize that the money Ruth is pulling that out of is money that's earmarked just for that. It's not like we're taking it away from some other department.
No, this is just out of the opioid settlement
Yeah,
money.
just out of the opioids.
It's not 100,000, it's 45,000.
45, yeah,
Yes.
and they're gonna match it.
The grant could go up to $100,000. We don't currently have $100,000 that we could say we could support.
Okay. So is there a motion in favor of this request of $45,000?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Mr. Waddle, is there a second? Second by Mr. Urban. Is there any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. And second by Mr. Urban. Yes, come those few.
Supervisor Bosser. It's not working.
Oh, there.
There it goes. Okay. Supervisor Urban,
Yes.
Supervisor King,
Yes.
Okay, and the motion for the request is approved. All right, very good. We'll move on to consideration and possible action on the following resolutions and ordinances. Resolution number 11-05-25. Resolution authorizing fund balance restrictions, commitments, assigns, and reappropriation of specified funds from 2024 to 2025. This was in your packet. So is there somebody that make a motion? Okay, motion by Mr. Urban. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Peterson. Is there any discussion? Anybody want any explanations? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
Supervisor King,
Yes.
Supervisor Urban,
Yes. Okay, and that resolution passes. Resolution number 12-05-25, the resolution in support of opening Highway 152 as an ATV UTV route. Is there a motion for that resolution? Motion by Ms. McCormick, second by Mr. Peterson. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
Supervisor Urban,
Yes.
Supervisor King,
Yes.
Okay, and the resolution passes. Resolution number 13-05-25, a resolution confirming and ratifying the authority of counsel for Waushara County to add additional defendants to opioid litigation, including in MDL 2804. Is there a motion for this resolution? Motion by Mr. Urban. Is there a second? Second by Ms. McCormick. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
Supervisor King,
Yes.
Supervisor Urban,
Yes. Okay, and the resolution passes. Resolution number 14-05-25. I would look for a motion on this to postpone it. Motion by Mr. Peterson, second by Mr. Johnson. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Ordinance number 696, an ordinance amending Washera County zoning maps pursuant to the authority granted in chapter 58 Washera County Code Zone Change, the Gellner Family Retreat LLC, Town of Mount Morris. Is there a motion for this ordinance? Motion by Mr. King. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Peterson. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
Supervisor King,
Yes.
Supervisor Urban,
Yes.
Okay, and the ordinance passes. Okay, ordinance number 697, an ordinance amending Washera County Code Chapter 10, Article 2, alarms. Is there a motion for this ordinance? Motion by Mr. Bossard. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Kirschner. Any discussion? Okay, go ahead and vote.
Supervisor Urban,
Yes.
Supervisor King,
Yes.
Okay, and the ordinance passes as well. All right, now we'll move into appointments. The motion to confirm Chair Jarvis's appointment of Jenna Wakely as the committee member for the following: the Administrative Review Board, Transportation Coordinating Committee, Public Works Board as an alternate, Facilities and Park Management Committee, and Red Granite Library Board. Is there a motion to confirm those? Motion by Mr. Johnson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Wadle. Is there any discussion? All right, go ahead and vote.
Supervisor King, Supervisor Urban,
Yes.
Okay, and that motion passes as well. The Transportation Coordinating Committee, Peter Culver, Human Services, term June 1st through May 3rd, or June 1st of 2025 through May 31st of 2028. William Rosenau, Veterans, term June 1st, 2025 through May 31st, 2028. Delos Gates, term June 1, 2025 through May 31st, 2028. Michelle Jaskovich, term is June 1st, 2025 through May 31st, 2028. Is there a motion for this committee, for this appointment? Yes, Mr. King, second by Mr. Bossard. Okay, go ahead and vote on that.
Supervisor King,
Yes.
Supervisor Urban,
Yes.
Okay, and that appointment is, those appointments are confirmed as well. All right, and last we have a proclamation, the proclamation proclaiming June 15th, 2025 as a World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Is there a motion for this proclamation? Motion by Mr. Kirschner, is there a second? Second by Ms. McCormick. Any discussion? All right, here you go. Go ahead and vote on that.
Supervisor King, Supervisor Urban,
Okay, and that proclamation passes as well. With that, we're up to the board suggestions for future agenda items. Is there any that anyone would like to have in our future agenda? All right, our next meeting is June 17th, 2025. With that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wados, a second by Ms. Wakely. We're adjourned. Thank you.